Welcome back. In this session, I'll take you through the solution for using CTask create external table as select statement to convert the delimited text file which is in CSV format to Parquet format with take the taxi zone file and apply. It has to write out the Parquet files and create the external table in our silver layer. So let's get started. Here we are in the Synapse studio. I'm going to create a new SQL script for this transformation. And as we did before, we need to switch to the right database, which is the NYC Taxi LDW, because that's where we have our raw data and that's where we are going to write our transform data as well. And now let's start writing the create external table statement. So that goes create external table followed by the table name. So as you know, we are going to copy the data from our raw layer which is in CSV format and transform that to Parquet format and write to the silver layer. So because we are not doing anything else, I'm going to call this table as taxi zone as well, but I'm going to put it into this silver schema. So now the next thing we need to do for a clear external table, as we know, is to provide the with clause with the 3 parameters that it takes. And the 3 parameters are the location, external data source, and the external file format assignment. So let's start with the data source. So as you know, we have the data source, which is the NYC Taxi SRC, which takes us up to the folder. Here are the container here, which is NYC Taxi data. So within this we already had the raw folder with the raw data. That's where the bronze schema sits on. But now we need another folder in order to hold our transformed data, which is in silver layer. So just to keep things consistent, I'm going to call this folder as a silver as well. And the schema is also scalable, a silver. So when we write the data, that will be a new folder created as a silver. And within that, you will see a folder called taxi zone. And the taxi zone data would fit that. So let's do that. Let me go back to my script and I'm going to put the location and it's going to be silver/taxi zone. And now we need to provide the file format. As we discussed, we want to write the data in the Parquet format. And as you know, we created the Parquet file format already. So let's go to our create external file format script and grab the name of that. And we call that as Parquet file format. We've already created it, so we don't have to create it. We just need to use it here. So that's everything for the create external table parameters. Now we need to specify the clause as and the select statement here. As we said, we want to select the data from our bronze layer. So the table there was called the bronze.taxi zone. If you wanted to use open row set function to read the data directly from the files, you can do that as well. But you know, we have an external table on the bronze layer which is sitting on top of this CSV data, and that's what we are reading. And as we discussed before, we are not doing any other transformations apart from changing the format of the files from CSV to Parquet. So I'm going to select every single column and every single record is being selected as well. So that's everything we need to do. If I run this, it should now create the external table, silver.taxi zone, and create the data as well. So let's run this through and see what happens. The query has successfully completed. Let's take a look at the messages, as you can see here. Now, apart from the data being scanned, we also have data being written. So we've written a megabyte worth of data as well. Now let's go to our container and take a look at the files being created. So let me go to the data hub and then the link that you've got the container. And within that, if I go to refresh, I should see another folder which is silver, as you can see here. And within silver you've got the taxi zone fold up and you should have the Parquet files here as well. So as you can see here, we've got the Parquet files being returned as well. Apart from this, we should now have the external table as well. So let's try and query the external table. I'm going to just run a select statement on a silver.taxi zone, and it should have the exact same data we've seen previously with the bronze layer, because just the format of the file has changed and the contents remains the same. And as you can see, we've got the right data coming back as well. So that's how you can use the CTask statement to select some data and transform it and write to location in our blob storage and also create an external table. Which is great. But before we finish, we want to make this script rerunnable. And imagine if I ran it now, it's going to say that the external table already exists, as we know, so similar to what we did previously for the bronze tables. We can copy the drop statement and then use it in our script. So let's do that. So I'm going to change the bronze to silver because we are dropping the silver table. One thing I've noticed is actually if I put a semicolon, it gave me some error. So I'm going to use the go statement and make both of them executed the same. If you run this one, you're still going to get an error. And the error reads external table location already exists. And this is the location which is the blob storage location. As you can imagine, this C task statement is going to write some data into our blob storage and the folder already exists in the blob storage and it can't overwrite. Basically, it doesn't overwrite any data. And if there is some data in the blob storage, it's going to fail. So we need to delete that data so that the C task statement can write the data. So one option is to go here and manually delete the folder, which is what I'm going to do. So let me delete the data and then come back to the script. And if I run this again, it's going to run through successfully and it will drop the table and it creates the table. And also we've selected the data from that as well, which is great. But in a production scenario, you're not going to be manually deleting files when you have a new set of taxi zone. You want to be able to just rerun this script and it should automatically populate the new data into Silver layer. But there isn't a means to delete files from our SQL scripts. That's where the Synapse pipelines comes. And using the Synapse pipelines, you can delete the file in our folder and then execute the script as well. We'll look at that in a later session. But I just wanted to give you a heads up on this as the approach we'll be taking in order to rerun a script, which is creating an external table using the C task statement. Before we finish, let's name the script. Unlike the bronze tables where we had one script to create all of bronze tables, I'm going to have separate scripts for each of the silver tables. That's mainly because that gives me the ability to execute just one transformation without affecting others if I wanted to. So let's do that. I'm going to call this one as a 6_create silver _ taxi zone it, and let's publish the changes. And that's the end of this session. I'll see you in the next one.